All right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about high school reunions, secret notes, coded phone conversations, and a beginner's guide to fishing for alcohol. Well, Chris, there's a few signs in life that you know you're getting old. Number one is you get the AARP card in the mail. That's not fun.
Always a good one.
That's not fun.
No.
You look at it almost like it's a joke that, oh, you must have the wrong place, or maybe the person that lived in this house before me was an old dude. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting their mail. And then you look down and realize, oh, shit, that's right. I am over 55. And the first couple moments that you have that card, you if you're like me, you deny it. It just sits by the refrigerator or in a bowl somewhere, next to the sink and where you put the keys and all that stuff, and just sits there. And then, well, whatever, I guess I'll put it in my wallet. I mean, What's the worst that can happen? I know. And I made that transition, Chris, and guess what? I was at a restaurant and they had a senior discount, and all I had to do was show my AARP card, and guess what? 15% off. That's what. And you know what? Now I have that thing in my pocket everywhere. And by God, if it's going to be I get one extra topping at Dairy Queen, I'm going to do it, man. I don't care. I like it. I like that AARP card.
It probably helped that you were at Black Angus at 4:30 in the afternoon, right? So they thought, okay, he's here for the early bird, so he's nice. Probably, this is legit.
That's right. What's the other old person place? Soup Plantation would have been one. The old people. Oh no, the home style buffet or the hometown buffet. Buffets. Do the old people love that? What?
I never saw my grandparents so incredibly nimble as when I saw them get up when it was time to grab that plate at the end of the buffet.
Sure.
Man, people, grandparents, and I can say that since neither one of us are actually grandparents right now. Grandparents love a buffet. They just fucking love a buffet. They can't eat that much, but it's just the idea that if they want to grab a little more shrimp cocktail, man, go for it.
But their favorite thing is the dessert. Oh my God, dude, old people, me included, boy, do we love our sugar. Holy moly. If they think that they can go back for seconds on chocolate pudding, you right. Bet you they will. Oh my goodness. Heck yeah.
Right. But there's also nothing like for, shrimp cocktail followed by ice cream at 10:30 in the morning, right? Because that's what they would like. I remember my grandparents making us go to these brunches, and it was just like, that's a little much. Can I get a pancake? I really don't want barbecue ribs right now. But
I also admired with old people, my grandparents especially, their traditions where every night it was the same thing. They would get TV trays. Remember those, Chris? A TV tray.
Absolutely. TV trays. I have a set of TV trays, and they come out at parties, because you need to place them around, like put stuff on them. But
listen, you're sitting in a chair in front of the TV, and now you've got a tray in front of you right at lap level. That's living, man. So they would sit there and they would watch Lawrence Welk at whatever it was, 7:00 on a Sunday.
Saturday. I think it was a Saturday.
Yeah. Okay. Saturday. Sure. And all I knew was that's the moment I would run out of the room as fast as I could. And they each had a bowl of ice cream, and every single night he had caramel ice cream and she had French vanilla with just a little drizzle of chocolate. And to this day, I have tried to hunt down caramel ice cream. And let me tell everybody that remembers a couple episodes ago, champagne sherbet is the most sought after flavor on the planet. Good luck if you can find it. It is absolute. And you're thinking, well, Jeff, I can just add Sprite or something like that, or Martin's apple cider to some ice cream. It'll taste the same. No, people. It has to be champagne sherbet. And I'm going to put a second ice cream on your list. Caramel ice cream. Good luck finding it. I know what you're thinking, Jeff. I can go right now and get caramel ice cream. No, you can't, because that caramel ice cream is really just vanilla with swirls of caramel. I'm talking about something that is just frothy and creamy, and it's caramel inside and out, and it's kind of this golden honey colored. That ice cream, the closest you can get is Talenti. There you go, guys. That was my ice cream rant. But for those listening, I just did you a huge favor. Find those flavors. Where was I, Chris? Good God.
You were talking Lawrence Welk.
Yes.
Old people. And which now we could, and I think we probably run across people that would consider us old people. If I'm at Target, again, if I'm taking my daughter to Target, I might think that somebody might think I'm an old person, and maybe that's not my daughter, but my granddaughter. So yes, we were talking about all things old and, or experiences. And, we just had one of those experiences because, what do you have when you're old? You have a lot of reminiscence and a lot of memories and a lot of stories. And sometimes you congregate in the same spot with a bunch of people you knew a long time ago. And no, I'm not talking about funerals, but that applies as well. But
intervention,
reunions, high school reunions, and yes, interventions would work as well. High school reunions specifically, we just had one, and I don't know, the reunion. We were both there. We've both gone to a few, but the whole sort of, if and you'll probably like this analogy. If the aliens come down one day and they're asking a lot of different questions and how we explain some of our traditions and some of our rituals, and maybe how will we explain high school reunions? The how, the why, right? The when. All of these things that are, again, they're sort of, they're traditions, but kind of unusual experiences in a good way, but still kind of good.
Well, for us, it's our mecca, right, Chris? Because we're the guys that have a podcast where all we do is reminisce about the good old days. And the whole point of a reunion is to see people from your memory, people that you haven't even triggered that memory in 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years. And there's some sort of endorphin rush is all I can figure, right? Something is happening in some of our brains where we actually get a kick out of, we actually get some kind of pleasure from having a memory from way back when, or putting a name to a face on somebody that shares that secret memory from your past. Because really what we're doing is we're reconnecting with our own identity, like that thing that's in your head that makes you, but no one else knows it. And then it's like, oh my God, that's that person that knows that thing. Hey, and then it's just this really great feeling until ultimately they tell you some sad part of their life. And then you have to go to the next person before you get too depressed. Does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. But, but I think also, when you think of reunions, and we went to as we all know, we went to a big ass school, right? So, and there was like 1,000 people thereabouts in our graduating class. The whole thing about it is the size and scope is that we could go to a reunion and it's in the, there's so many, there could be a lot of people there. There'd be several that we know. There could be a lot of people we don't know. And we went to high school with them for years. Maybe we went to junior high school with them for years. And again, because everything was so big, it's just like nothing like meeting somebody at a reunion, which I think I did. But to see somebody that you haven't seen literally in decades, you were an entirely different person when you saw them, right? With entirely different experiences and aspirations and everything else. And then to see that person and the kind of and I think social media has kind of taken some of that off, right? Because you can kind of connect with people without ever actually seeing them or seeing them in person, I should say. But it's so, like I said, you can see what that person has become and or hasn't become and everything else. And it's I can't really put my finger on how it's a, I don't know. It's a strange but common experience, right? And then to just sort of go and hey, what have you been up to since the second Reagan administration? You know what I mean? And that kind of thing, right?
Yes, exactly what you said. And I already, Chris, have I would call it a personality flaw. There's many, but let me just explain one of them. Is in my mind, especially if I haven't seen someone in a while, or if somebody knows me through a friend and I'm finally going to meet them and they've never actually met me, but they might have heard about me. In my mind, I think that their reaction to meeting me is going to be much more positive and exciting than whatever normally really happens, right? For me, I'm living in my own Truman Show. So it's like ta-da, hey, it's me, Jeff Thill, that guy. And 9 times out of 10, the opposite reaction occurs. So it is really fun when you're at a reunion and you have all these memories of this person and you finally make eye contact with them in the crowd and go, oh my God, I can't believe it. Could it be that guy? And then you get closer and you look at that little badge that they're wearing,
Yes,
you know, the little
with
pin, and it shows
picture
their
on it.
Yeah. And you go, yep, that's the guy. And you walk up and you're like, hey man, it's me, Jeff Thill, the guy that the blah, blah, blah. And it's not even that they don't remember you. That happens sometimes. What's worse is when they do actually remember you, but they just don't care. Like whatever that thing was that you thought was so awesome, that big connection, it's just clearly, it's just not there at all. Or life has just beaten them down to the point where they're just looking for some cheap alcohol so they can go home.
See, and I've had even the opposite experience. Yeah, you're right. And to have, or if you do sort of connect and you have your memory of a certain thing is a little bit different than theirs or vice versa. It's like, oh yeah, but didn't this happen? Or I thought it was like that. And it's just like, well, did it? Am I right? Are they right? Has my memory gotten bad, in this time? But I literally, and again, I mentioned, you go through, like I said, I mentioned social media particularly. There was something a month or two ago, and again, a lot of these things are run through like Facebook and stuff, right? And our school pages and class pages. Somebody who I never heard of, like referenced me in something that I said and made him, and I'm just like, okay, I'm glad that decades later, this person who, yes, I was one of those like, nope. And I was always, come on, you know me, I was always the one for the cheap joke or the smart ass comment in class.
Be more specific. Why are you talking like you're a CIA operative in code and you're worried that the Germans are going to encrypt it?
It was one of those things. I'm like, I don't even know who this person is. And I don't even know what he's referring to.
Oh, okay.
But he's mentioning me to the point where I got like, tagged like, oh, so-and-so mentioned you in a comment. And I'm like,
oh, gotcha, man. Gotcha. Okay.
Who is it? If it, again, had it been you, had it been somebody, like Mark, who we saw the other night, who, yes, we had a complete discourse on this, something that happened in advanced American literature in 11th grade. And it's like, yeah, that was pretty much how I remember it. But this other guy, like,
I'm really glad that I missed that conversation. That sounds fucking awesome. What did you just say you had a conversation on? Can you say that again? I got to hear you say that again.
No, it was about getting like, with Mark Feinberg, and we both had a specific experience getting thrown out of Mr. Shore's advanced American literature class.
That's sorry. My brain was going in a weird direction. Like you were talking about the fineries of advanced, and really it's you and Mark Feinberg, perhaps one of the funniest, most original guys that ever came out of Patrick Henry, getting thrown out. That's awesome.
No, and this had nothing to do with like Grapes of Wrath or anything like that. So, but it was just basically we got within a week of each other, a couple of days. He forcibly had us removed from, not forcibly, but had us removed from his class.
That story almost got really good. Okay.
Right. And, so that aspect of it, and we had to and we compared notes because our notes were a little bit off, but it was just like, but that was something that, and again, he's a person, no, I hadn't seen him since high school. So that was one of those sort of common things to sort of talk about and everything else. But, it was interesting.
All right. Yeah. No, for sure, man. And at the 40th reunion, I had all kinds of amazing conversations with people that I never expected to see. And you guys, for listening at home, Chris and I, obviously have the same personality type. We obviously clearly have a little bit of a passion for nostalgia and, childhood memories, probably because we both had pretty darn good childhoods. Right. And we're pretty lucky. But we have been to the 10-year reunion. Chris, you were there, the 10-year high school reunion, right?
I did not go to the 10.
Okay, so Chris did miss that one. That's its own weird thing. Then the 20, I did go to the 20. Chris, you were at the 20, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the 30.
Yes.
Okay. And now the 40. So you guys, that's...
Well, we also had that very informal one like 5 years ago. Do you remember? That was just at a bar, and it was kind of... You were there.
I was? Okay.
You were there.
I don't remember the informal one. Maybe because it was so informal, I didn't even realize that's what we were doing. But anyway, for those of you that are as old as us or have been to your 10 20, 30, or 40. Let me just explain that it's very, very different, as you can imagine, at each one. And the 10-year reunion, Chris, the one thing I will say that was really cool about that is people aren't really that much older. They're old enough that you're going to start to see life changes happen, and you will definitely see some kids, and I have this career, or whatever it is, but they mostly look the same. And so it's really fun because it's like an extension of just being back in high school again. They literally look like the same kids you just left for the most part. The 20-year, yeah, now you're seeing some changes, right? And then it's really great to compare notes because all the weird career paths and life things that happen at the 10-year, night and day different usually at the 20-year. But at the 20-year, now people are kind of loosening up. They actually have the kids, they're a little more rough and ready and, taking life by the horns. They probably are entrenched in their career, whatever it is now. And just the confidence mixed with an open bar, man, pretty fun, I would say. Would you say that was a good one? The 20 year?
Yeah, definitely. And that wasn't they were still like, I think that was the last time they wore a tie. Right. They were like, oh, yeah, everybody kind of dresses up and it's like adult prom and that kind of thing.
I forgot
right?
about that. Yeah, it kind of was.
Yes, men are wearing suits. Because after that, it got casual, which is fine because nobody wants to do that shit. But
the 30-year was definitely, very different than the previous.
Yeah, because then because you're 10 years into what you just talked about, right? Like kids, career, or 10 years farther, I should say, not necessarily 10 years into. And you've got people who've become, and you and I are not in this category, who are grandparents and stuff like that, right? And it's just like, okay,
sure. Yep.
And that's what I think there's almost like a seismic shift because, and I didn't even get married till I was 32. And I didn't even become a dad for the first time till I was 37. So there's a lot, so I'm kind of on that second level compared to people who, because again, we all went to weddings of people that we were friends with in our 20s, right? And I had nearly figured my shit out when I was in my 20s to even, get close to that. So I was a little bit, so even now it's just like, yes, and again, you're on the opposite on that because your sons are in their 20s.
Yeah, well, I got married when I was 26, and then had a kid just right after that. Yeah.
Right. So you're in that category. I'm in the opposite category. Like I got married in my 30s, so even though my wife is a few years younger, just in case she's listening, we always have to get that on the record. Yeah, I don't know whoever decided that what the cadence would be for reunions, like every 10 years and stuff like that. Because now we're definitely at that point where 10 years, even though it goes fast, right?
At 30 years, you expect to see some drop off. And now, whatever the life path is, it's pretty much now announced what it's going to be for each person. Now you're kind of like, okay, now I see where life's going to take these guys. And but the 30-year, everyone's still really appreciative of getting together, really good vibe. A lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's kind of happy to get away.
Right.
But the 40-year that we just went to, the 40-year, I got to say, man, I didn't expect there would be much of a turnout. I just figured by now we're looking to get in bed by 7 o'clock.
Right.
And
so a lot of people did leave early. Started at 6.
Yeah.
And it was clearing out by 8:30, or not clearing out, but people were leaving by about 8:30. Had to go catch Matlock or something.
It was actually a really amazing turnout. It felt like it was 150 plus people, and this was a great reunion because I was able to talk to people that I didn't notice or see sometimes at previous reunions, and these are people that go way back. These are people, Chris, from my elementary school, if you can believe that.
That's on that experience too.
I think we had 12 different people there that night that were all from my elementary school after 40 years. That was insane.
No, that absolutely was, because I had the same experience. It's like, we're not talking about high school. We're not talking about junior high school. We're talking about people that I went to 6th grade camp with, or played kickball with, in the dirt at Gage. So yeah, absolutely. So I think it was, and I think also the whole, what always cracks me up, and again, I think we talked about this, I love the tropes that we've seen in like films and television when they have reunions and it's somebody going back to their hometown and the reunion is literally like in the gym and there's a point in time where like the characters are in the hallway and they're looking in the trophy case or they're going to see their old locker or something like that.
You nailed it. That's just, every single montage.
And it's never, it's like, do people really do that?
No.
I don't think it was maybe just a lazy writing choice because in that way you can write, it's easier to just, maybe at some point in time they did do that. Right. But ours have never been that way. Right. We've never been in the gym, never looking at, let's go find my old, locker,
I feel like a lot of horror films or suspense thrillers have had high school reunions as the backdrop. And I think it was Gross Point Blank, I think. Wasn't that a John Cusack film where he's a hired killer?
Yes.
And that's the setting is his high school reunion, but he's really there to take someone out.
Right. And he fights. And
then, of course,
again, because he's an assassin and he fights like another assassin, like in the hallway, like outside of the lockers. And I'm trying to think, God, I think it's like Mira in the Bathroom or something like that is the song that's playing or something. Great movie. Go see it go stream it if you can. Go see it. The hell.
The other one that pops in my head is Romy and Michelle's. Isn't that it? Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
High school reunion, right?
With that was Lisa Kudrow's big breakout after Friends.
And Mira Sorvino. Yeah. Right. But that
both high school. Yeah.
Yes. Both probably way past. It was probably their high school reunion. It should have been like their 20th, but it was probably their 10th. And how those things go. But I can think of a couple of those specifically. But that's same thing, right? They're at the gym, they're on campus, and they connect with somebody. Yeah. So definitely. But so ours was not like that. There was no gyms, no lockers, no trophy cases, no hitmen or assassins fighting in the hallway. But it was very enjoyable to say the least, and we were there till the end. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was there as they were all heading out. And the thing you kind of come across after talking to all these people, and versus your image of other human beings when you were a kid. What we forget is, especially in grade school, a lot of these people that I'm talking to, I had almost a cartoonish version of them in my head. This is how they are their personality, right?
Okay. It's like exaggerated.
Yeah, well, that's Nick. And this is how Nick fits in to my childhood experience, just like a character in a video game, right? We have a very limited understanding of who this person is as a real person, but they just sort of play a role in your memory. And you're always wrong. Whatever you thought about that person is way the fuck off. Not even close, right? But that's your stupid, limited, this is what I think this person is like because that's how I remember them back in the day. And then you get to 40 years later and you're looking around and going, oh, now I get it. All those stories I invented in my head, all the intrigue that I imagined was happening behind the scenes when life is exaggerated when you're a kid and everybody, you're trying to imagine what they're like. You were totally wrong. Everyone's just totally normal. We're all just adults that want to have a good time, maybe grab a beer or glass of wine and then get to bed early. That's it. That's really what it all came down to in the end. I don't know, man. There's some kind of comfort in that.
Absolutely. It feels, and again, I think that's probably why people, again, that's one of the reasons you go, right? To get that feeling, to get that familiarity, to get, especially if you haven't seen somebody in a long time, if you want to make that connection, obviously, I'm sure there are people that don't go to reunions because they hated high school, right? Absolutely. They hated it. It was a bad experience. And why would I want to go and relive that and see those people? And I get it. Why would you? Right. But at the same time, I get where it's like, yeah, I really want to see those people and I really want to just sort of reconnect it. And it's also interesting to sort of see, because again, it's human nature and everything else, to sort of see like how should I say, it's still sort of cliquish to see these groups of people who are friends, decades ago, and they're still kind of milling around together. And you almost have to have like a forced integration to go, I'm going to go talk to that person, or I'm going to go grab them when they walk by, or maybe at the bar, or maybe at the buffet line or something like that. So those things still kind of exist. And again, we all coordinated ahead of time. We all met right, at a bar ahead of time, and there were other people there, same thing. So it wasn't like, I'm not saying that we were immune to that, but again, it's still, it's funny in that regard, because it was just like, man, this is almost looks like the quad, when everybody still gets just a different quad, and it's not on campus, and but it's things. The more things have again evolved, some of them are still very much the same.
Yeah. And again, when it comes to expectations of, oh my God, I remember this girl, I remember this guy, and you just think you know them so well. And my favorite part about reunions is when you actually get to meet a brand new person, right? Somebody that you're like, oh my God, it's the same face, but you're actually very different than I thought you were. And I always love that when that happens, right? Not that I had bad impressions of people, but it's always a nice surprise to just learn that, shit, I guess I didn't really know anything about you. To me, that's interesting.
I have an unrelated but unrelated story to that. I know a couple who my son played basketball with their son, and got to know them a little bit. They went to the same high school, but didn't know each other. They ended up going to the same college, didn't know each other. They finished college, the 10-year reunion, they finally met each other at the reunion, and 25 years later had 3 kids. You know what I mean? So it was just like, that was a pretty astounding. Now, not just same high school, same college, and they finally connected, at a 10-year reunion, so.
Well, I guess I'll just be a total dick and one up that story.
Go ahead, dick.
Yeah, I'm going to. Ready?
Yes.
In an area called San Carlos.
Yes, very near and
near
dear
a street
to us.
called Badger, on a street called Badger Lake. I grew up in a home there from the age of nothing until the age of 3, and then I moved away. But I came back to that street each day because I was being dropped off with a babysitter. So even though I had physically moved away, I was there most of the day as a young kid because my parents, of course, were at work, and I was just being babysat. So throughout my entire childhood, I used to play with a girl across the street, and her name was Deanna. And she had a sister named Lisa, and man, we were the best of friends and played like crazy. And of course, you grow up, you end up going to junior high school. We went to the same junior high school. She's a year ahead of me, and never bumped into each other. We went to the same high school and never bumped into each other. We had mutual friends who knew us very well and knew the other very well, but never made the connection that we would know each other. One time and one time only, at a house party at someone's house, I bumped into her, at least saw her face and said, oh my God, you were that girl. Like, I think that was like my first girlfriend, if you want to think of it that way. And she's like, oh my God, it's you. And we got pulled away by other people and other commitments, lost contact with each other again, didn't think about it. Then after high school, we both get the job at the same exact place, at the movie theater in Grossmont Center over here in San Diego. Yeah. And she's the snack bar girl and I'm the usher. And it still takes a couple months before we finally figure out, wait a minute, you're the guy. Oh my God. And and now we've been married ever since. And here we are with 2 kids.
Did you have one of those flashlights with like the really long little coney thing on the end of it because you were an usher? Or you just have didn't you have to carry, you wielded it like it was a goddamn lightsaber. It's like, don't mess with me, man. I got this.
Kind of like a lightsaber.
Okay.
That's exactly what we did.
Nice.
Yes, we had those. And yes, it had the red plastic cone on the end of it. Yeah, like you were guiding in a 757. Yeah, basically.
You were landing the plane.
Our only job, we only had 2 jobs, which was the greatest thing ever, is check the temperature in the auditorium and tell people to shut the F up. I think that's all I ever had to do.
You have to tear a ticket?
And I had to tear a ticket, sure.
Okay,
sure.
3 jobs.
Sure.
Jobs.
And by the way, I did actually rip off a scene from Valley Girl back then, because there's a pretty funny, great movie back in the day, low budget, called Valley Girl, starring Nicolas Cage.
Deborah Foreman.
In it, he's this Deborah Foreman. Oh my
Great
God.
soundtrack.
And in it,
great soundtrack.
The best. Yeah. And in it, he's this kind of skinny punk rock kid. And in one scene, he's the usher at a movie theater and he's wearing 3D glasses. And the main antagonist in the movie walks up and says, "Oh man, is this movie in 3D?" And Nicolas Cage says, "No, but your face is." I don't know why we thought that was funny. I still to this day don't know why that's funny. It was just sort of a smart ass thing to say. But, you know, as an usher, I would do that all the time. I would wear the 3D glasses just so that everybody coming in, the guy's like coming in for Purple Rain. He's like, "Oh my God, it's in 3D?" I'm like, "Sure as hell is." Oh, the laughs we had. Anyway, there you go, man. There's my little love story.
That is awesome. There's the nice pull of Valley Girl. Yeah, and Purple Rain even again because actually that I think Valley Girl was like 82 maybe, and I think Purple Rain came out 84. But no, those right in our timeline, so that's okay. Well, I guess maybe to sum it up, I guess the highlight again of this reunion. Shout out to the committee to Marla and Tina and Lindy. Hopefully you're listening at some point. Did a great job, but we were there live. It was like we were doing a live remote from Mad Jack's or something like that, right? And we didn't have any prizes. We didn't have any T-shirts, right? We didn't have any bumper stickers. But we did have was an opportunity to have some classmates, people we knew, people we didn't know, come by and share a couple of memories here and there, or just thoughts. And again, I think we got some interesting stuff. Some interesting anecdotes and comments about their experiences and as a member of the class of 1984 in San Diego.
Class of 1984, yes. And it was so cool that they were able to give us a little booth off to the side. So Chris and I could actually just for about an hour sit at a table, have people come by, and we had the little remote microphone set up. And anyone and everyone that wanted to share some memories could just sit down and start going off on it. And Chris, I think you and I both noticed pretty quickly that a lot of the same themes that we've already talked about on the show came up again and again as we were reminiscing with, again, these folks from high school. Now, this first conversation that you're going to hear was our good friend Karen and Lisa sitting down with us and, again, reminiscing about some of the fun times we had back in the day. Just to give you some context here, Chris and I both knew Karen and Lisa all throughout high school, even junior high school. And I actually knew Lisa way back in grade school. And Chris, it should be noted here that these were two of the popular girls. So we were very, very lucky to have them sit down with us. Oh, and I should probably mention that by the time we sat down and did these little interviews, these little recording sessions, my voice was already pretty much shot. So yes, that is me that you're going to hear in just a second, even though I sound like Betty Davis. All right.
All right, let's get into some more super important stuff, which is...
junior high.
Yeah.
Notes.
Yeah, right on. So, Karen, communicating between people back in junior high school was either super easy, where you used your mouth, or it was super complicated, where you had to use all kinds of coded messages and methods. Give me an example of one way in which two people might communicate with each other back in junior high school in the 1980s.
Well, Jeff, I used to communicate with you frequently vis-a-vis letter writing, note writing.
You're talking about using an actual pencil or a pen, right?
Pencil, pen, colors, various colors. I doodled a lot because I did a lot of art.
You did. You had awesome artwork, by the way. Very good artist.
I did a lot of doodles on the notes that I gave you. And in addition to writing said note, I would then, and we would all fold them up very intricately, which was so fun.
Into what shape?
Usually a triangle.
It always ended up as a triangle.
It
right?
always did, because that was the only way the ends would tuck in and fold to stay. Yeah. And we could, and it was almost like later. You remember, like when we used to play like the football on the table?
That's right.
That was same thing.
So for those of you that don't know, the triangle-shaped piece of paper not only was a note that you would pass, but you could also use it as a football
Game.
that you would then hit through
A goal.
a field goal, which was
Your hands.
2 index fingers with your thumbs up in the air, right? So the idea here was you or me or anybody would make it overly complicated.
Beauty of it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
The anticipation and, is somebody passing me a note? When am I going to get said note? Because, didn't want to have it intercepted by the teacher ever.
No.
So, yeah.
No, and most teachers probably didn't have the manual dexterity. They might have had arthritis, so
That was our
boring.
version of texting.
So
thing,
boring.
right?
It's not even as exciting as, like you said, trying to get the teacher not catching you when you're sending the note.
How about that? What about when, again, because it's not the same anymore. Let's say you were hoping somebody called you, right?
Oh, God.
And the phone rang.
Dude.
And that anticipation between the time that got to the phone
Yes.
and you picked it up, and maybe it was your mom or dad calling and you were slightly or severely disappointed. But how about that? With that whole not knowing if somebody was going to call.
Oh, my God.
When they called. Or when they called and it was the person you wanted to touch.
Well,
What was that? What did that feeling?
was horrifying for me because we only had 2 phones in my house, one in the kitchen
Yes.
and one in my parents' bedroom. And
Yeah.
they were plug-ins and they were rotary, and I literally had no privacy. So a few of my friends, we did start talking in code. Like when there was a party, it was, I don't even remember what the code name was, but we literally had a whole little, burn book of these are our code words for what we're, going to be doing later. So when my mom picks up the extension in the kitchen, she doesn't know where I'm going, which was PB, PB versus, I'm going to the library, right?
do you remember any of the abbreviations right now?
I don't. You know what? I honestly don't. I was trying to think of them, but I don't.
That's so funny.
But no, it's true. And it was just so frustrating because, you'd be anchored. It's not like now you can pick up your cell phone and go somewhere private and, to talk. You were anchored where you were. And, my parents walked into their bedroom or walked into the kitchen. That was that.
Meeting somebody at the mall. How did that work? How'd you go meet somebody at the mall or the movies or?
Yeah, I think one of our parents carpooled us there before we got licenses, and we would somehow coordinate it. We'd get there. Yeah, I don't, now in hindsight, it's weird. We all got there. We all got there on time. We all saw the movies. We met with each other, and then we made it home somehow.
Our parents dropped us off.
I think so. Yeah.
So on the subject of we got home somehow, we were talking on a previous episode, and we've been talking to a bunch of other people at this reunion about Tijuana.
Oh, God.
How did you guys make it home somehow, right?
It was easy back then.
Okay.
It was.
You jumped in a car over the border.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
They didn't.
I would never allow my child that I just took to San Diego State.
Right.
I'm like, you are never to go over the border.
Yeah.
But we did it. That was nuts.
Would you say, Lisa, that it was super safe back then?
No.
No. We didn't know any
But we
different.
felt safe. We didn't know any different, and we
No,
felt safe.
Any different.
Would you say you had a designated driver?
No. We jumped in a car with a freaking
No, we
whoever.
were in the back of trucks with no seatbelts and no nothing.
Oh my God. You just hit our daily double, which is I'm in the back of a pickup truck with no seatbelt.
Going over speed bumps at a high rate of speed.
Karen, please
No,
tell me.
I'm
I
a
beg you to tell me.
Me now. It horrifies me.
I beg you, Karen, to tell me that you were sitting on the wheel well.
Right on the edge, just barely holding on.
That is so awesome.
No, I remember one time going in the back of, I think it was Suzanne Harrison's dad's truck up to the Del Mar Fair, which seemed like a long ways away back then, but it really isn't. Yeah, it was a fair ride. But that ride up to the Del Mar Fair was more fun than any of the attractions at the Del Mar Fair because it's so much fun back there. Because it was, semi-dangerous and bumpy and all of that.
So there you go. Our conversation with Karen and Lisa. That was a lot of fun. It definitely took a couple turns there that I didn't even expect. They were so cool to sit down with us. Thank you both for doing that. Listening back on that clip, though, I have to say my voice was kind of sexy. I kind of like that gravelly sound. So the next clip we have here is with our buddy Bill and Jay. Bill is someone that Chris and I still hang out with to this day. We're even on a kind of a high school buddies text thread. Holy moly, the secrets buried in that text thread must never see the light of day. And then again, like I said, our buddy Jay. And of course, guys being guys, it wasn't very long before the subject took an immediate turn to alcohol. And Bill definitely had some thoughts on the strategies back in the day for getting it, drinking it, obtaining it, scoping it out, what to do with it when you had it, and where to go to find it. Bill, take it away.
From 1980 to 1990, all we cared about was where are we getting alcohol, where are we going to drink alcohol, how are we going to do this? So Steve's Arcade, we'd all meet at AM, PM. If there was nothing to do, we would actually drive up and down streets in multiple cars in a row, looking for house parties.
We did. A good party, a party that was well executed and maybe would last, you couldn't tell from the street. Like if you're driving by, you would have no idea because you'd have to, if you wanted to keep that party going, nobody outside, keep the noise down, keep the doors shut. You get to a party and there's 50 or 100 kids on the front lawn and the sidewalk. Guess what? That party's not lasting very long.
That is, yeah.
Right.
That was an issue. If you had helicopters at your party and it broke up, you might be a legend, but you wouldn't have a party.
Absolutely.
So there was certain streets that I remember. Ballinger. There must be a party on Ballinger.
Always on Marjoram.
Tommy Drive. Tommy was a big party.
Madra.
Right
above the school on that open dirt area.
Okay, so that's another thing. If there wasn't a party, and we did so many house parties, every weekend we had house parties. If there wasn't a party, there were certain places we would drink. You mentioned that place off of Madra, that was called The Rock. Remember The Rock up at the top? So we'd all pull over there. It was just an empty lot. We drank there. There was a golf hole off of Cowles Mountain behind the apartments there where we would drink.
Mm-hmm.
I think these are universal. We're talking about San Diego, San Carlos area, San Diego, but I think everybody in 1982, 83, 84, it's sad, but our whole goal was to get drunk or drink and possibly meet girls, but it wasn't even a requirement. Yeah. Do you remember that?
I remember drinking.
We would go into a canyon and drink, or if your parents were out of town and somebody found out your parents were out of town, whether you wanted to party or not, people were showing up with Moosehead at your door, Löwenbrä.
Correct.
It just happened, right?
Right.
But how did we get our alcohol? Do you remember fishing?
Yes.
I was able to buy back then.
Okay. Why are you always rubbing your mustache in our face?
Right.
This is you probably could have bought in like 8th grade. We didn't think about that, Chris. We had Jay buying alcohol for us.
You fished, right? So which was standing out front of a liquor store, hoping someone would come by who when you asked, would say, okay, I'll buy you some beer. Usually girls had better luck, especially if they found like a 23-year-old guy.
Yes.
Or if you found that one liquor store that, for the moment, was selling to minors, right? The word got out. Those didn't last very long because the word got out and then they kind of had to pull back a little bit, right? So, yeah. So there was just, appropriating from parents' liquor cabinets and things like that. Right. Older siblings were good.
But let's go back to fishing because it's a big part of our youth, right? So
right.
We would drive into a parking lot, and then there would be a discussion about which one of us might go in and try to buy beer.
Right.
That would usually be the first chart when you would have one of your friends go in and try to buy beer. And there was always like a thought, well, if I just bring a little, maybe they'll let me buy it. But then we figured out, well, maybe if we buy a lot, they don't want to, they might sell to us because that's a good sale. Right. So we realized just a 6-pack of Löwenbrä wasn't getting it done. So maybe we'll try to like buy 40 different things, and that didn't work either.
Right.
So that's when the fishing would ensue.
Right.
But fishing was a skill because you wouldn't want someone who looked like your dad to buy you drinks because he was never going to buy you beer. Right?
Correct.
You had to look for someone who looked a little skeevy. He was going to be a guy that was okay to buy you drinks.
And maybe you could incentivize that person saying, you know what? We'll buy yours if you buy, that was a useful trick.
That's exactly where I was headed. So you'd have to get a guy that looks
negotiation.
Get a guy that would really enjoy a 12-pack of Milwaukee's Best.
Right.
Well, there you go. Huge flashback on the scoping of alcohol and then the drinking of alcohol. And of course, what is a good party? What is not a good party? I've only got a certain amount of time this evening to drink this alcohol. Let's make it count. I'd like to thank Bill and Jay for giving us a guided tour, remembering exactly those same strategies that we used, holy moly, 40 years ago plus. I can't say that again. And by the way, if our voices sound kind of funky, again, we were sort of yelling into the microphones, but that's just because there was a big crowd.
It was, yeah.
But it was great, yeah. And by the way, that just shows you how many people were there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of fun.
It was great energy, Jeff. It really was, yeah.
It was, yeah. They did a great job. So very exciting. Glad to put a little ribbon on this special reunion episode, class of 1984. Any closing thoughts here, Chris?
Not really. Again, like I said, it kind of went as I expected. No surprises. And but that's all good because I think you're not really looking for surprises. And it was a good time. It was fun. Again, the backbone of this show is like you said, reminiscing and remembering things we tried to forget. And I think we got people to do just that. So our job was done. So until next time, Jeff.
Until next time.